Good morning. Good morning. We are back at Life Lessons, right? We're talking about interactions on today. Our interactions, right? Yesterday we talked about love of self, and today we're talking about interactions with others. Interactions with others. So, in today's lesson, as you see on the title, rewrite your role. Who taught you? Who taught you who to be? Who taught you who to be? All right, listen. You don't just, or you didn't just come like you are, right? A big part of who you are today is through your interactions with other individuals, right? So I want you to think about what roles have you accepted out of survival, and do they still serve you? Do they still serve you? All right. So another question I want you to think as you're listening to today's podcast is, who did you have to become in order to feel safe, in order to feel seen, and in order to feel accepted? All right, listen, you didn't choose the role that you're playing now. You became this individual to belong, to be useful, a lot of times to avoid punishment, right? To survive. But you are not that 7-year old anymore, right? You're not that 17-year old anymore. You're not that 27-year old anymore, right? You are not in those rooms anymore, okay? And or in those codependent relationships. And I'm speaking from, because I watched my podcast yesterday, and when I'm speaking to you about a thing, it is from a very affirmed space. So to the eye, you may still be in these codependent situations, right? But again, the whole practice of the project is to speak as if it's so, right? So when I'm saying, hey, you're not in that codependent relationship anymore, there may be some physical parts of you that are engaging in codependency, but the goal is to move from codependent to independent to interdependent relationships. Okay. So a lot of times I'm speaking to you from a very affirmed space, a very empowered space. And this is why faith, right, is such an important part of the journey of healing, because we're speaking to the person that we're becoming, right? And we're saying that from the present moment. And I just need you to, I don't know, be in agreement with that, right? And so when I'm saying, hey, you became this person to belong, to be useful, to avoid punishment, to survive, right? But you are no longer that 7-year old, that 17-year old, that 27-year old, right? You are not in those rooms. You're not in that church, right? You're not in that codependent relationship. And now that you're safe, right, you decide who you get to be. There may be a voice, right, that comes up that says, but I am still here and my life is still messed up, right? And that's just a voice that's truly trying to keep you where you are. And to be somewhere different, we have to be able to see something different. I heard, I used to have a friend that said, if you can't see it before you see it, you may never see it. And so a big part of the project is really just giving you new language. So here is my why for today's session, because too many people are exhausted from roles that they never applied for. All right. And again, remember, we are not here to badger the people that gave you this role or requested that you become this character, right? We're not here to judge them, because you need it to be a thing, right? To function for an environment, be it, you need to be the quiet one, the fixer, or whatever that was for that previous environment. But where you're going, we're going to have to change the character, right? We're going to have to go in and rewrite the story. And we know that this month, right, season 2 of Project Life, this time is personal. We're talking about stories. And this week, we're talking about moving from survival, right? From this from survival to thriving in our life. And a big part of that is truly changing the narrative from a very victim mindset to a very empowered state, right? And so again, if you can't see it before you see it, you may never see it. And my why, again, is because I've seen too many people exhausted from roles that they never apply for. And I want you to know that your authenticity is not a threat anymore, right? It is a return to yourself. So here's a disclaimer before we go into our body scan. We're not blaming people here. All right. So this is not about you going down a list and saying who did something wrong to me. This is not about that. We are recognizing patterns. All right. Because the only way we're going to change and become the people that we were created to become, right, is we have to see the pattern, right, to disrupt it, right? So this is not about shaming anybody. This is not about making a call after this and being mad or upset at anybody. It's about clarity. All right. You don't owe anyone a role that cost you your wholeness. All right. So you don't owe anybody anymore. And it's okay. And we don't have to go into judging ourselves or other people, right? We do the best we know how to do with the information we have. And hopefully, because we have new information, we will start to show up differently. So good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, big little brother. All right. I love you so much. Um, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I just want to say we are back, right? To it is our second season of Project Life. And I was going to say Project Hope, but it's our second season of Project Life. And I am just so excited, right? This time is personal. That is like the what is that called? The little side or subtitle, right? So it's the second season. This time is personal. First, the first season it was personal, but it was kind of theory, and I wanted you guys to get some insight and really understand. But this next season, September, October, November, because we take December off, it's personal, right? And I'm going to be speaking to some things that I feel is important to where we are today and as we start to grow. So, good morning, right? It is Wednesday, Gratitude Shift Wednesday, and we are back at Project Life. So, I want you to take your deep breath, right? Get present in your body. This is for your presence, no pressure, no judgment, right? Just our presence, feeling your feet on the floor. If you're standing, if you're sitting down, right, just kind of scanning up the legs, feeling your butt on the seat, right, at your desk. If you're laying down, all right, just feeling your toes, wiggling your toes, all right, up your spine, activating all of the vertebrae, right, and really coming up one side of your spine, the other side, tapping into our sympathetic nervous system, right, just calming ourselves today, right, giving some attention to all of our organs, right, every organ, just bringing some gratitude and some compassion to our organs, all right, our stomach, our intestine, right, just bringing some compassion, our heart, right, just kind of whispering to ourselves on today, I love you, right, and I thank you. All right. Our shoulders, feeling, right, the weight kind of lift off our shoulders, like our body carries so much that we don't even know, right? I talked about those neuropeptides. So just releasing some of the weight off our shoulders, down our arms, activating our hands today, up our necks, opening up our throat chakra so we can speak our truth, right? And not to anyone, but I think that, I heard a person say the other day, that addiction wasn't about what we're addicted to, be it substances or whatever, but the addiction, the root of it is really our insecurity with ourselves or just our fear of who we are, right? And so we run and hide. And the first person I think that we have to be honest with is ourselves, because we are looking at ourselves every day. We see ourselves, we know what we've told ourselves, we hear our voices. And so to be able to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I love you, knowing all of the stuff that we had to endure, all of the things that we have to accept, to say I forgive you, right? I think it's huge and it's a very courageous act, right? And when we can do that from an integrative place and an honest place, I think that we will start to notice our life shift, all right? Up our necks, our mouth, our nose, softening our ears so that we can hear a little softer today. Not so much about how the person is saying it, but really how taking control in what I receive and how I receive that, activating our brain on today. right? In the space around us. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, that was our quick body scan, just bringing some compassion, taking in a deep breath, and just whispering again, I love you. Have an amazing day. Okay, listen, bringing awareness to all of our 750 billion cells on this morning. So drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling on this gratitude shift Wednesday. I am feeling grateful, right? I'm back. I'm back. Uh, took off August. So I'm excited about what is going to unfold in this what third and fourth quarter, the end of the year, y'all. We is like in September. We're in September. So what a difference, right? I don't know, what is it, 10 months makes. 10 months makes. All right. So today's theme, again, is interactions and more specifically, the role you played in those interactions. So let's get honest about where they come from and whether they still fit who we are today and the person that we're becoming. So today's session is for you if you've always feel responsible for how other people feel. All right. Today's session is for you if you've praised or if you've been praised for being the strong one, but silently you feel unseen. Today's session is for you if you shape your identity around being needed, not known. All right, to being needed and not known. What does that mean? That people need you, but you don't really feel like they know you. All right. If you're tired of performing and you're ready to feel real, this session is truly, truly for you. So today's powerful quote, every role you've played was taught, not chosen. That is the thumbnail, right? So every role that we play is taught to us. How do we know that? Because everything is taught to us, right? We learned how to walk, we learned how to talk. If we grew up in a Spanish home that spoke Spanish, we would speak Spanish, right? If we grew up in a French home over in France, we would speak French, right? So everything that we are, a big part of it is taught, right? It's very much um, nurtured in us, right? In a sense. And there's parts of us that's just by nature, right? The way our nose look, the way our eyes are, right? So a lot of things are genetic, but a big part of life is nurtured. And when we can be honest, then we can say that a lot of that nurturing came from a limited space, right? So my mom had me, I was her second child. I think she had me at 17, right? She had my brother at 15. So what does a 17-year-old have to teach her second child at 17, right? If you look at your family, my grandfather, they grew up in Panola, Alabama, right? Very much from the South. They picked cotton. They were sharecroppers, right? So they didn't have a high school diploma, right? And there was a lot of racial tension that my grandfather talked about. So a lot of how I saw my blackness, a lot of what I felt like it was to be a woman, right, was all shaped by these individuals that had limited access. And so if we can be honest about that, our parents' life, maybe they wasn't the most educated. Maybe they were. Maybe you came from an affluent family that shaped how you see your blackness and everything, right? But the one thing that I want you to see is that a big part of who you are, right? You didn't choose that, right? It was, in a sense, placed upon you. All right. So, again, how does today's session really connect with our interactions, right? So, again, we're talking about life. Yesterday, we talked about the love of self. Today, we're talking about our interactions with others. All right. Listen, the roles that you've been playing didn't come from isolation. All right. They were shaped in response to your relationships. All right. So the way you interact with others, whether it's through over functioning, whether it's through people pleasing, rescuing, staying silent, or being the go-to person, guess what? It's a direct response to the roles you were taught to play in relationships to maintain what? Connection, right? We all want to feel connection. And so we stay in these little silos or in these roles because we don't want to savage or, yeah, we don't want to cut that relationship off. All right. So this session is really here, or this lesson is really here to expose how these interactions with others are has often um has often created this performative type of mentality of safety, right? And not really a reflection of who we truly are. And hopefully by the end of this today's session, you would have some a little more courage about being who you are, or just some interest in discovering who am I outside of these titles. All right. So, why does this matter in the context of interactions? Because interactions are built on roles and not always from our truth. Okay. So, you wasn't born knowing how to navigate people, you learned how to do that. And a lot of times you learned how to do that from survival or from surviving them. All right. So again, I'm gonna go back to my grandfather, who was a very stern man, right? Very stern, very much aggressive, right? Um, yeah, but he was very stern. So to survive him, right? To survive him, and I'm saying this very intentionally, I learned to be the knowledgeable one, right? So I learned every tool in the toolbox. I learned what a Phillip head was, what a flathead was, what a wrench was, what the different pieces, like the 3/4 inch wrench cover was, right? I learned what the grade of sandpaper of a 20, a 30, a 120, a 220 wet sandpaper, right? I learned the things that he loved so that I could survive or not be a part of his wrath. Okay. A big part of that, me being that individual for him, because he was like my go-to buddy. What I didn't realize is that that shaped how then I function as an adult, right? So I need to know everything, right? So I'm highly intelligent. I learn a lot of things, and a lot of it was truly to keep the connection, right? The connection with my peers, the connection with my family, and things like that. All right. So I want you to think about, who did you have to survive, right? And how did that develop the person you are today? All right. Because listen, when your nervous system gets trained to keep the peace, to fix the problem, or avoid being a burden, guess what? You develop relational strategies that help you stay connected, even at the cost of what? Your authenticity. All right. And this is okay to know this. We don't have to judge it, but the awareness of it, I think, is powerful, right? So if you think back to, did I have to survive even the environments, right? We grew up in a very much impoverished neighborhood that was a high crime. A part of who I am had to survive that. A part of who my brother is had to survive that. And if I go back, a part of who my mom uh, is or became had to survive, right? That a part of who my grandmother was had to survive slavery, or being a slave, or being an indentured servant, right? So a lot of us, who we are today, is a direct consequence of what we had to survive. All right. So I want you to think about, what did I have to survive, right? What did I have to survive in my life? And how has that shaped who I am today? All right. Again, because your nervous system gets trained to keep the peace, to fix the problem, to avoid the burden, and to develop these relational strategies to help you stay connected, even at the cost of your authenticity. Another thing I want you to know is that the roles determine the rules of your relationship. All right. So each role kind of comes with an unspoken contract. So be strong, and they will think you're not weak. All right. Keep the light, and they'll leave, right? Say yes, or you'll be seen as selfish. Keep the peace, even if it costs you your truth. All right. So these roles really determine your relationships, and each role comes with this unspoken contract. So when you go to analyze these roles that you're playing in your interactions with others, I think that it's time to get honest about, what contract have I silently agreed to as a consequence of being this person. All right. So your interactions will with others become scripts, and rather than genuine connections. And that's a lot of times why you don't feel seen, why you don't feel understood, right? And why you kind of feel this weight or not accepted, because you have fallen into the role, right, of who you feel like you need to be to keep the connection versus courageously showing who you are. And I want to say that I do think that that's a part of becoming an adult too, though, right? Really learning who am I as an adult outside of the constraints or the walls of being a child. All right. So we don't have to blame anybody. I just think that you're just not taught, like, okay, now that you're not a child anymore, now that you're not a teenager anymore, it's time to learn who you are. And a lot of us just don't pause to take the time to learn who we are. We continue with that same kind of mindset, and really just trying to go along to get along. All right. If that makes sense, I want you to put a heart in the chat for me. All right. Good morning, Dale. Good morning, Dale. All right. And then last but not least, this lesson begins with the rewrite. So we recognize, when you recognize the role is not your identity, you can what interact from your truth instead of training. You can show up real, right? Not just reliable. And then you can connect from a presence, from your presence and not performance. So this is how interactions begin to heal, really by removing the mask and meeting people as your authentic self, which is a learning curve in itself, all right? And not this role that you've been performing. Again, when we talk about removing the mask, that could be a daily thing, that you're taking off the mask because you have worn one for so long. And so, again, getting off out of autopilot and choosing to show up as your authentic self, is a learning curve. And I mean, I think we can give space to learn who we are. And that you may take the rest of your life to get to build that relationship with you. But I think it's worth it, especially because you want other people to have a relationship with you. And so I think that you taking the time to build a relationship with you is the most important law of, if we were talking about the law of attraction, the most important and most attractive thing you can do, because now you start to attract what, those that like you as well. All right, so um discussing today's life lesson, the roles are how we earn safety in unsafe systems, but roles become rigid. They become rigid identities when we never stop to question them. So today, here is some questions that I really want you to ask. One, who told you, right? Who told you that you had to be the peacekeeper? If you are a peacekeeper, who told you that being emotional was a weakness, right? Who told you that? And who told you that asking for help made you a burden? And most importantly, do you want to keep playing those roles? So whatever your roles is, who told you that? And do you want to continue to believe that? Listen, I have worked with women and men who have never cried before. All right, who never cried, not because they wasn't emotional, but because they were taught, that being the emotional one was a liability. It was a liability in their family. It was a liability to being a strong one for a man. It was a liability in his manhood, right? So guess what they became? They became protectors. They became fixers, right? And the go-to person with this idea that they can handle it all, right? That they were just the champion of their family, and they never got weak, and they were the strong ones, and they can bear it all. But inside, guess what? They were breaking. They felt unseen. They were angry, right? And they had a lot of emotions that was just wrapped up inside of them. So when we trace back, when working with these individuals, we would trace back to the origin, right? We realized that that really wasn't the essence of who they were. They were very passionate people. They were very emotional individuals. And guess what? They would cry. They would cry in our sessions, and allowing that space for them to release that emotion help them to, guess what, get in alignment, right? And realize what their real assignment was, right? That they were passionate and they wanted to help, but they could do it and still feel their way through life. All right. So, in one of the families that I worked with, a little girl became the strong one. All right. So she became the strong one at about 10 years old because her mother was emotionally unavailable. Right. In her church, she had learned to really hide her feelings because vulnerability was labeled a lack of faith at this point in time and when she was growing up. In relationships, she became the caretaker because that's the only way she knew how to receive love. All right. So in her family, again, she was the responsible one at 10. In her church, she learned to hide her feelings because, vulnerability wasn't really allowed in the church that she grew up in. And then in her relationship, she became a caretaker. Now at 45, she didn't really know how to stop this type of thinking until one day she said, I'm tired of being in these roles. I want to be a normal person, which was big for her. Even to say normal, right? So we had to really define like what is normal. And guess what normal was to her? All of the other, all of the people that she was helping that could ask for help, right? That could cry, that could, kind of not have it all together. In her mind, she's like, I want to be normal like them, right? And so we had to really break down like what normal was, what she really desired for herself so that she could get in alignment. All right, so that she can get in alignment. So here's our heart check-in for today. I want you to pause and I want you to think about what role are you still performing? All right, where did you learn that from? And what does it cost you to keep playing it? What is it costing you to keep playing this role? All right, all right. And here's 5 truths that I'm gonna go through fairly quickly, right? Fairly quickly. That really is tied back to this heart check-in. All right. Number one, most roles were created by unmet needs, not really your true identity. All right. So again, I'm talking about if you look at the ecosystem of your family, there's some unmet needs here. So me, I became the provider for my family. Why? Because we didn't have income. So I became the helper to really help the family stabilize. Financially, because that was the gap, that was the unmet need. My mom, she had at that time 3 kids. My older brother had went off to jail, right? And so she needed she was, I think she was probably getting paid like $5 an hour or something. She was a cashier at Kroger, right? And so we just didn't have the resources. So coming in as the helper was that unmet need. So when you can look at what was the unmet need in my family, right? Maybe there was little siblings that you had, so you had to become kind of like the babysitter or the helper. Maybe you had some illiterate parents, right, who really couldn't read or write or talk for themselves and things like that. So you had to be the smart one, right? Maybe you had to be the smart one because no one graduated from the family. And so a part of your smarts was tied to you making it out, right? All right. So listen, you didn't become the strong one. You didn't become the smart one. You didn't become the helper or the silent one because that's who you were born to be. All right. You became that because it filled a gap. All right. It filled a gap because someone else wasn't showing up. So you stepped in. All right. Or you were made to step in because being that way kept you close to what? To love. All right. Or kept you safe from pain. All right. So becoming this person kept you close to love or it kept you safe from pain. Does that make sense? All right. Maybe your home lacked emotional regulation, so you became the fixer. Maybe your parents were unpredictable, so you became hyper responsible. All right. Maybe no one asked how you felt, so you became the one to ask, how do you feel? You became the one to ask about everyone else. All right. But that's not your identity. All right, that's an adaptive behavior as a consequence, what, to your environment. And here is your invitation in this life lesson for you to get the answer, or for you to ask yourself, is this who I am, or is this who I had to be? Is this who I am, or is this who I had to be? And here's your anchoring question for this. What role did you take on to get needs met? And does that role still serve you? All right. Does that role still serve you? Number two, being strong all the time is a trauma response. It's not a personality. All right. This is a trauma response and it's not a personality. So let's be clear. Strength is beautiful. I love it. I love to see strength in a man. I love to see strength in our women, right? I love to experience strength. All right. But being incapable, okay, of softness, of vulnerability, or of help, guess what? That's not strength. All right. That's survival. All right. To be strong, there is the polar opposite. It's a universal law. So to have strength, it means that you know how to be vulnerable. All right. You know how to be soft. All right. You can't have one without the other. So to only exhibit a level of strength and never have levels of vulnerability or softness or feel like you need help, then guess what? That's not true strength. That is a coping mechanism, right? And that's survival. So many of us have learned that crying is a weakness, needing help is shameful, and being tired means that you are failing. All right. So we guess what we do? We overcompensate. We become the strong one, and we wear it like armor. All right. Again, we overcompensate. We become the strong one, and we start to wear it like armor. But guess what? Armor gets heavy. All right. And sometimes the strength that strength that people are praising is the very thing that's burning you out. You don't have to be strong all the time. All right. And you definitely don't have to be strong to be loved. You don't have to be strong to be respected. And you don't have to be strong to feel safe. In the book, I tell you guys, I wrote, it's called A Dream That Broke Me Down and Stand Me Up. I talk about how I would like prepare my day. And my prayer was like, God, prepare me for my enemies, right? I'm like this new entrepreneur out here and I'm fighting as an entrepreneur. I'm fighting the naysayers, like, because I'm going to build a business that makes a difference in the life in my life and the life that people serve. And I know that there's going to be people who don't believe in me. So prepare me for those people, right? Guard me, cover me, right? And all, so I'm waking up with this prayer, and I want you to think about that, of heaviness. And I'm asking God to armor me with this heaviness, this heavy walk, so that the no's don't hurt as much. All right. So that the rejection, I don't feel it. It may bruise me, but I don't feel it as hard. And I had to shift, like, why are you thinking about the no's? Why are you praying for armor for the rejection? Why are you not asking God to show you the yeses and connect you to the individuals that see your vision, right? A very much lighter way of being, right? God, show me the yeses today, all right? I know that they're there. Allow my eyes to see them and my ears to hear them, all right? Because the battle of the rejection, that's going to come, right? I don't have to pray for armor with those, right? Because the armor is heavy. But allow me to see the yeses and the connection, right? Because guess why I'm wearing the armor? Because I really, in a sense, I want that. I want the yeses, right? I want the alignment. I want the connection, all right? But my prayer in my language is not speaking none of that, right? And so I got through the days day by day, moment by moment. By the time I got home, I made it home, right? And when I got home, I talked about, guess what? The people who said no, the rejections that I had. And I thank God for another day of getting through the lions, the tigers, and the bears. right? And that got to be burdensome. And so I had to change my language and really start asking God to open my ears and my eyes for connection, right? Speaking differently. All right. So again, you don't have to be the strong one all the time, especially to be loved, to be respected, and to be safe. You can step into vulnerability, right? You can ask for help and you can be soft and you can be, especially to my females, you can step into your feminine energy, all right, and be right? Be who you were created to be and then do the thing. All right. So here's your anchoring question around this. Where did I learn that being vulnerable made me less valuable? All right. Where did you learn that at? All right. Another thing I want you to know, overfunctioning often hides emotional neglect. So, again, you know the type who can't sit still, always organizing, always fixing, always helping, and always achieving, right? It looks like ambition on the outside, but underneath is often anxiety. All right. A deep belief that if I don't hold it all together, I'm going to fall apart or it's going to fall apart or I will fall apart. All right. Why? Because somewhere along the way, they learn that if I'm not performing, I'm not worth noticing. All right. Listen, overfunctioning is the child of emotional neglect. All right. You work harder than everyone else, not because you're more capable than everyone else, but because no one taught you how to simply be present, right? Without proving or performing your worth. All right. So I want you to ask yourself this: what part of my business or what part of my busyness is actually a cry to be seen? How much of my performance is me silently raising my hand saying, look at me, I'm good too, I'm lovable too, I'm worthy too? All right. And just be honest with yourself about that. All right. Another thing I want you to know is that the fear of being seen is not often fear of being the fear of being seen is often fear of being rejected in your truth. All right. It's not that you don't want to be known. All right. It's that every time you get close to honesty, guess what? Someone leaves or someone left you. All right. They judged you, they shamed you, they ignored you, and then they weaponized what your words. So you learn it's safer to be the version of me that makes everyone comfortable. And it's dangerous to be fully who I am. But now, guess what? The protective layers is keeping you from authentic connections. All right. So you're hiding not because you're fake, but because you have been hurt. All right. And this is where we have to give ourselves some compassion and some understanding of why our brain has created the strategies that it has created and why we are procrastinating, why we're self sabotaging, and things like that. And really understand that God didn't create you to be liked more than He created you to be what loved. All right. I also want you to know that in this pursuit of being liked and being loved and being accepted, I have to charge you with this. You are responsible for doing that first. All right. So it's in a sense, if everyone rejects you, are you going to go along with everyone else or are you going to be there and hold your own heart and say, I know they said no to you, but I'm saying yes to you? Even in your tears, even in like your I don't know, disarray, even in that emotion of rejection, everybody said no. Are you going to be the person that says yes? And I think that until you can do that, right? Until you can sit with yourself and be okay with everybody else's no and know KNOW that you still okay, right? Even with all the no's, your one yes to you is the most powerful thing that you can do. And learning how to say yes to you in the midst of all the no's is the most loving thing that you could do, right? And the return to your role in the return to your healing, in the whole idea of even expansion is going to start there. Because when you go to heal and when you go to align, I'm going to say more align, right, which requires healing. But alignment is, it's not just about healing, it's about expanding too, expanding who you are. You're going to get rejected because the people that's around you now are around you probably because of your wound, right? Probably because of a wound in you. And so you're going to feel the rejection from them, right? You're going to feel that rejection. And in that rejection, like I said, in the tears, in the sobbing on the floor, in the, you're going to have to find a space of duality where I'm hurt because these people have rejected me. I'm hurt because I didn't feel like they would do that. But I'm also standing in the gap for me, right? I'm also holding my heart. I'm also saying yes to me and find a way to balance those two. And when you can do that and stand in the middle of that, I guarantee your life will start to change. All right. All right. So here's your question. What part of you, my truth have I been hiding to stay accepted? Right. What part of my truth have I been hiding to stay accepted? All right. And really answer that from an honest place. And again, knowing that when I bear my truth, everybody may not agree with my decision. Everybody may not agree with who I am, but I'm going to hold a space for me, right? And what that models to my 750 trillion cells, what that models to my nervous system is that it's safe to be me and I have a witness and I am that witness. And then you start to get matches to it. But we have been taught to get it from the outside before we give it to ourselves. And it's just, that's a lie. You got to give it to you first for it to be sustainable. Okay. Last but not least, you are not a job description. You are a soul. All right. You are not a job description. You are a soul. All right. Yes, you're gifted. Yes, you're the go. You're the go to. Yes, you're the go to. Yes, people depend on you, but you are not a resume, nor are you your resume. All right. You're not just your accomplishments. You're not your productivity. You are a human being. Okay. Not a human doing. All right. You are a human being, not a human doing. And if your worth is rooted in what you do for others, guess what? You will never feel enough just being you. So let this be your reminder that you are allowed to exist outside of usefulness. You are allowed to be worthy even when you're resting. And guess what? You are more than just what you have been trained to produce. All right. So here's your anchoring question. Who are you or who am I when I'm not producing, when I'm not performing? And or pleasing. All right. Who am I when I'm not producing, when I'm not performing or pleasing? All right. And here is another question I have for you. Which of these five truths hit your chest the hardest? All right. I want you um, to write them down. Was the truth, which one of them hit the hardest? You are not a job description. You are a soul. The fear of being seen is often fear of being rejected in your truth. Overfunctioning often hides neglect. Being the strong one all the time is a trauma response, not a personality. And most roles were created by unmet needs and not true identity. Which one of those hit hard for you today? I want you to write down, I want you to sit with that, and I want you to say this out loud. They may not have been true for me back then, but that may not have been true for me back then, but I am not who I had to be. I am who I choose to become. All right. Why is this important? Because roles are not your identity, they are the reaction to the environment. And why this matters is because if you don't examine who you are becoming, you'll mistake survival for authenticity. All right. The real value in that statement is releasing the roles that you have been handed actually gives you access to real needs, to your real needs, to your real desires, and to your real joy. Okay. I had a testimony once. One of my clients said, once I stopped being the fixer, I realized how tired I really was, and I finally let myself rest. And research shows that the family system theory confirms that children unconsciously take on roles as the hero, as the scapegoat, or as the lost child based on what dysfunction. All right. But these roles can be unlearned and redefined. Okay. So it's time to stop performing and truly start living. All right. So here's 10 essential truths I need you to know about interactions. You are not born with the role, it was assigned to you. All right. Roles help roles help create order, but they often silence your truth. So roles in essence, make families and systems feel functional, but they don't always serve you as an individual. Number three, every role comes with an unspoken rule: be this or lose connection. And you learn that early. All right. You learn that early that if I stop being who they need me to be, I might lose them. All right. So this creates fear, right? It creates fear around setting boundaries and being honest, because rejection sometimes can feel like death. All right. And so a lot of times we don't want to feel that rejection. So we're staying in these roles. Number four, some people only love you in your role, not your rest, not your presence. All right. So they applaud your productivity, they admire your strength. But the moment you rest and you break down or you say no, guess what? Their love starts to feel conditional. I want you to know that that's not real love. That's a contract. And many of us are in contractual relationships or situations, and we're not really exchanging love. All right. And this will make sense if we're in survival, because everything is based on a need, right? Which is why that even that saying, what you bring to the table, is very much given survival, right? Right. It's given need. All right. It's given, it's given. I can't believe I said that. It's given. Yeah, it's given. It's given survival. All right. Number five, letting go of the role may trigger others, but it will free you. All right. When you stop performing, people might push back, and know that this is okay. You will make it through that. All right. You are allowed to disappoint. And number six, you are allowed to disappoint expectations that diminish you. Okay. Listen, you are not required to live small for someone else to feel safe. Like I said, God created you 100%. It's your responsibility to maintain 100%. If you're choosing to function at 70% or 80% to please someone else, that ain't between you and God. That's between you and that person. And so many of us are not living to our fullest because because we're just like, this person is so powerful that we're willing to be 70 or 80% of who God created us to be, so that we won't get rejected by this individual. In the sense, we'll rather be rejected by, and I ain't gonna say rejected by God, I'm gonna say rejected by ourselves. We rather reject ourselves than reject someone else. All right. Um, authentic roles require truth, not performance. So you can't feel fully loved if you're not being fully seen, right? This is the whole authenticity, transparency thing, right? And that's the most I don't know, loving thing that we can do or give, is the opportunity for a person to be transparent with us. Number eight, people pleasing is a role rooted in fear, not in love. So you saying yes when you want to say no, right? Not because you're kind, but because a lot of times you're scared. All right. Listen, people pleasing is a role that's rooted in fear, not in love. So scared of, so you're really scared. What are you scared of? Scared of conflict, scared of being left, scared of not being liked, right? And these fears often wear a smile or a mask. And really we're becoming yes men because we're scared of rejection. All right. Number nine, being honest might cost you proximity, but it will give you a sense of peace. Some people won't like the real you, and that's okay. Again, when 100 people fall and they don't like you, you still gotta find a way to like and love yourself. Okay. So again, proximity. We have to put peace over proximity. All right. You can lose access, but still gain a level of alignment in yourself. And then number 10, you don't have to earn your worth through not through performance, not through pain. All right, listen, you were born worthy. Not achievement, not a role, and not a struggle can add to your worthiness. All right, it's just a demonstration of that in which you already are. All right, put a heart in the chat if that made sense for you as we go into our biblical wisdom on this morning. So, Galatians 5 and 1. It is for the freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, then Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by the yoke of slavery. Basically, this is saying this isn't just about spiritual freedom, it's about emotional and identity freedom, right? God didn't free you from sin just for heaven later, all right? He freed you from slavery to performance now. All right. So God didn't free you from sin just for heaven later. He freed you from slavery to performance now. All right. From shame, from overfunctioning, and from playing the role to be loved. All right. So this yoke of slavery in context, it's anything that pressures you to earn what God already gave you. And we definitely live in a society where we feel like we got to earn stuff. All right. So this includes the emotional slavery of being the strong one, being the responsible one, being the peacemaker, and being the one that never gets a break. All right. What Christ says, when Christ says freedom, he means freedom is an inside job, all right? Freedom to rest, freedom to be, and freedom to stop performing. So this verse is the spiritual permission slip to return you back to the role that you choose for yourself, all right? And not that other people place up on you. All right. All right. Again, that is Galatians 5 and 1. It is for the freedom that Christ has set you free. And again, God's desire is not for you to carry the yoke of performance, perfection, or pressure, right? His desire is for you to be free. All right. And we know that I'm going to bring that nervous system connection, right? So the nervous system connection is roles formed in childhood become hardwired responses in our nervous system. But through self awareness and safety, guess what? You can rewire your brain to choose presence. All right. So, from a mind body standpoint, here's what science has confirmed that the roles you played since childhood, they are hardwired, all right, pathways in your brain, meaning by nature, like unconsciously, you just do this thing. All right. How it works is that your brain memorizes the role that kept you safe. All right. Then that role becomes automatic. All right. And it lives in the nervous system, not just as your thoughts. All right. So this is why you will default to fixing things before you act. This is why you silence yourself at to avoid conflicts. This is why you are nurturing others even when you're depleted. And it's so funny because we can work on our love of self. And a lot of times when we go back into our interactions with others, we feel like we're taking a step back because we will go back into these patterns that actually has been hardwired into our being. All right. So at that point, it's not about us judging or feeling like we're taking 15 steps back. It's about us being aware that, oh, this is a hardwired pattern. All right. It's not just about behavior, you guys. It's about a survival loop. But here is the good news. All right. Neuroplasticity actually equals freedom. So just like Galatians say, stand strong in freedom, science says, listen, repeat the new, right? Repeat the new truth-based thought that creates a new pathway. All right. And rewire your brain to choose presence over performance. And that's going to require that you be intentional. All right. So the first time you may fall into the fixer, right? So you may fall into fixing things before you act. And then you become aware, like, oh, wait, that's that hardwired part of me. And then you see yourself doing it. And it may take a minute. You have to give yourself time, and then you end up saying, no, I don't want to do that. And then you got to go through like this emotion on the inside where you kind of start to feel overwhelmed, and you have to tell yourself that you're safe. Because listen, changing directions is not an easy thing. I want you to imagine a vehicle going 100 miles going to the left, going to the left, 100 miles going to the left, and decide to go the opposite way, right? Decide to go and make a 160-degree change, right? That cars, you're gonna see it like it's gonna make a lot of noise. It's gonna, right, to even start to go back the other way. And so when we're creating these new pathways, know that it's not an easy turn, right? It's going to create some friction, it's going to create some noise, right? But you can do it. All right, you can do it. And that is why the project is here. And if you want to join the project and have an accountability partner to really help you build those neural pathways, you can go to sheetalittle.com/life. All right. Matthews, here is our promise verse, Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Again, this is just Jesus saying you don't have to carry it all anymore, right? This is for the individual who's been over functioning in your relationship. If you're a woman, over functioning in your relationships. If you're a man, over functioning in your relationships, right? Leading from a place of exhaustion and confusing worthiness with usefulness. All right. Listen, Yahshua Messiah in this verse isn't just offering heaven, right? He's offering relief from this identity exhaustion. All right. The burden he's talking about is not just physical, it's the emotional labor too, right? Trying to hold it all together, trying not to disappoint, right? Trying to always be on. All right. Rest is not a weakness, you guys. Rest is a holy rebellion against performance culture. All right. And you need your rest. It is so divine and critical to who you are. So if your role won't let you rest, it's sometimes not rooted in God. All right. It's rooted in fear. And Matthew 11:28 is your invitation to return. All right. Again, that verse says, come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Again, you were never meant to carry it all. If your role keeps you from rest, it's time to return it. And the neural connection to this basically just says, here's what the brain science says about burden and rest: chronic roles based stress. Chronic role based stress, always being a fixer. What that means is always being a fixer, always being a pleaser, and always being a strong one. Guess what? It keeps your nervous system in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. All right. This state, guess what? It releases cortisol, right? The stress hormone that, guess what? Increases anxiety, suppresses your immune system, makes you feel unsafe, keeps weight on your body, no matter what you're doing. But guess what? When you practice truth telling, when you allow emotional rest, and when you drop the roles and return to peace, guess what? Your brain starts to shift from threat to safety, from high alert to deep peace. And and this is called your, I'm so sorry, this is called your parasympathetic activation, where your brain and your body rest and restore is in rest and restore mode. All right. So science again shows that honest connection and emotional rest literally retrains your brain to believe it's safe again. All right. So my question to you is, what role is God asking you to release so he can show you your real responsibility? So he can show you your real responsibility. I want you to let this land in your body. The role you play to stay safe, God's not asking you to be that. All right. He's asking you to come closer, to lay it down, and to remember who you are underneath all of that. All right. Because underneath the strong one is a tender person. Underneath the fixer is a person that needs healing. And underneath the silent one is a voice that, guess what, deserves to be heard. All right. So, my final remarks in this session is that neuroscience and scripture both agree that healing comes when truth is practiced, peace is possible when performance in, and guess what? Your freedom is both biological and divine. So, here's another question as we end this life lesson. What role is God asking you to release so he can show you your real identity? All right. How we're going to get there, let's put this into practice. I want you to your action steps. Write down one role that you've been playing. Who taught you that? Who taught you this? All right. And why did you accept it? All right. And then I want you to write a release statement. All right. I want you to write a release statement. All right. I no longer need this role to be loved or seen. Okay. All right. Your journal prompt for today is, what role are you ready to return to? Your affirmation for today: I am not a performance, I am a person. And our intention, listen, I choose truth over performance. And then your bonus challenge for the next 24 hours. Notice when you slip into a role, I want you to pause, and then I want you to just ask yourself, is this who I am, or is this who I learned to be? All right, listen, I'm gonna do that call, that challenge, and that charge as we wrap up today's session. I'm calling, I'm asking, what role are you done performing? I'm gonna challenge you today to say it out loud, to write it down, and to make that break. And then I can charge you with going live with your truth, not just your training. All right. And I charge you to go shape your life. All right. If today's session resonated with you, and you're walking away with some insight on today, you already know what to do. Drop a fire in the chat and let's celebrate our growth together. Listen, your growth deserves a container. So I'm asking, if you want to, there is space in our project, right? In our growth membership for you. You can just go to SheilaLittle.com/life. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel. Um, if you want to be a part of the community, make sure that you join the Elevating Life with Sheila Little Facebook group. Know that right now I'm recording for the podcast, so you can actually go subscribe to the podcast on Spotify at Dr. Little Life Lessons with Dr. Sheila Little. Anything else? Nothing else for today. I want you to know, remember this: if you could shape it in your mind, you could have it in your life. I love you, I love you, I love you. And I will see you tomorrow as we talk about focus. Okay, focus. So I'll see you tomorrow for that life lesson. Till later.